Thank you for joining Calbright College's Board of Trustees Executive Committee meeting on April 15, 2020. Please follow along with our agenda on board docs, linked on calbright.org. A few housekeeping notes for attendees who wish to make public comments. We have 3 ways you're able to address the board. 1, email your public comment to board@calbright.org. 2, use the Q&A feature in Zoom to leave your comments, and they will be read into record by the moderator. Or 3, use the Q&A feature to request 3 minutes to address the board over audio. Include your name and organization and which item you'd like to speak on, then use the raise your hand feature to be called upon. Phone attendees, please dial *9 to raise your hand. You will be unmuted and allowed to address the board for 3 minutes at the appropriate time. A reminder, this board meeting is being recorded. And with that, I'd like to introduce Board President Tom Epstein.
Hi, good morning, everyone. The Calbright Executive Committee is now meeting, and we'll begin by calling the roll.
Hildegarde Aguinaldo. You guys have to unmute, so if I know you're there. Costa?
Here. Sorry, that was Hildy.
Thanks, okay. Amy Costa? Tom Epstein?
Here.
Jolena Grande?
Here.
Pam Haynes?
Here.
Bill Rawlings?
Okay, so we have a quorum. Let's begin by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I guess I will lead that since that's probably the easiest thing to do. I'm going to stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Now I don't believe we need to have a discussion about the order of the agenda, unless anyone has anything they'd like to add. Okay, I'm just going to give a quick President's report. First of all, I hope everyone is staying safe. We're starting to get used to these remote meetings, and expect this one will go smoothly, and pleased about that. I hope everyone is surviving on the board and in the larger community college community. I know that the Chancellor's office and his team is working very hard to try and help all the colleges transition to online education, and that many colleges are making a lot of progress to help the students complete their terms this spring. With respect to Calbright specifically, I know there's been a huge workload for Agita and everybody there to keep the college running under these circumstances. Fortunately, of course, we're kind of designed for this kind of event, and there's a number of priorities that they're working on. One is to keep learning going for the first cohort of learners as we continuously improve, and we expect that while this circumstance might cause some problems with some of our existing learners, that we're providing as much assistance as we can to help them get through any difficulties that they're having. The team also, of course, has to evaluate the structure of the college to make sure that we are designed in a way that is going to be most effective to serve our students both now and in the future. And we're also helping other colleges. I think Agita will explain that later, but we've fortunately, because of the way we're set up, we are able to offer some assistance to the other colleges in the system. And while this crisis is a terrible thing, I think it does help to demonstrate the value of Calbright, both the technology that we're using, the fact that we have a distributed workforce, and that our mission of improving the skills of adult learners and workers is going to be more relevant than ever as we get to the other side of this coronavirus lockdown. So all of these things make me excited about the fact that Calbright exists and is able to serve the state in this unique way at this difficult time. Just a couple other things I wanted to mention. We are forming a search committee to search for the permanent CEO. I'm inviting all of the members of the executive committee to join that search committee if they are able to, and so please let me know about that. And we also are going, because Jeff Baum is now off the board, we're going to need to add a new member to the executive committee at our next full board meeting in May, and so we'll look forward to doing that. So with that, I will turn it over to the CEO for her report.
Thanks, President Epstein and Vice President Haynes and the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees. I wanted to share that since our last committee meeting in March, full board meeting in March, we have been, the team has been rapidly adjusting to this new world, the statewide shelter in place the pandemic response has created. We are very acutely focused on our students' well-being, supporting them as they're managing much of what all of us are navigating in terms of family responsibilities and kind of an unprecedented and abrupt economic shock. We've been proactively communicating with all enrollees, reminding them that they have access to WellConnect services, which range from helping them fill out unemployment claims to mental health referrals and supports, assistance with housing needs, childcare services, and a number of other services that we can connect them to. We have sent students reminders about our device lending library, which is a program that's designed to remove kind of one of the common access barriers that prevent educational advancement. In particular, we are adding checkpoints into our newly implemented relationship management platform. And what that allows us to do is to actually identify students better who are in need of additional support, and then to target supports to them throughout the enrollment and instruction pipeline. We are also using Zoom to launch a more targeted campaign that's aimed at community-based organizations, and that's really about reaching out to those frontline leaders and constituents who could benefit from the skills-based training programs and support. For those of you who weren't tracking this, as Tom mentioned, I wanted to also really commend the Calbright team, whose efforts have provided mutual aid in the form of laptops and internet access Wi-Fi devices to over 500 students at rural community college campuses across the state. Because of their swift action, I think we've been able to help a little bit with some of the potential educational disruptions that students throughout the system are experiencing as a result of the COVID-19 crisis. Right now, new processes are also being implemented in response to the board's prioritization of and request for a top-to-bottom organizational review. We have a very small, lean, but talented group of consultants that's aiding in the effort, and they're going to help me to assess key areas of the organization's structure, operations, performance, policies and procedures, contracting, compliance-related responsibilities, fiscal activities, as well as planning and oversight. And they are in the process of meeting with key internal and external stakeholders to understand the college's existing and planned efforts, and also to really help us better align our core functions with the commitments that Calbright has under its statutory objectives. The result of this review will be a key set of organizational and programmatic changes, and the aim of those changes is really to bring us squarely back to the functional capability that we actually need as an organization to solve these central challenges that we've identified that are facing Californians and will only grow in need relative to what we're seeing in terms of need for support for career advancement and economic mobility, particularly in the face of economic uncertainty. We are aiming to have these changes occur in a very timely and efficient way and tracked on 2 levels, both for the beta cohort of students, which we're working through now and for setting the course for future students. On the hiring front, there has also been a tremendous amount of activity. We've made significant progress in our review of hiring and human resource practices. And the culmination of that, thankfully, from my perspective, is the posting for an executive director of human resources. That's going to be a very critical step for us in aligning the organization's structure and staffing with what's needed to better, again, execute against our responsibilities under the statute. Elsewhere on the hiring front, we've received extensive interest in a number of open positions at the college, including a chief of staff, director of operations, a senior vice president for external relations, and a director of government affairs. And we will be beginning the interview process for those positions later this month. We are also marching forward with our efforts to hire the college's first full-time faculty, all according to the process that was drafted alongside the statewide academic senate. And by way of update, while the recent disruptions throughout the system have slightly lengthened the time it's needed for different stages of the process, we are still kind of moving forward, forming the faculty screening committees and for our 3 open faculty positions, as well as 3 additional positions that were posted supporting faculty on the student support side that we will be setting up the screening committees for. And there's going to be more of that on a rolling basis over the next several weeks, including a number of classified positions. Planned, in terms of planned improvements for now, the near term, and looking ahead, during my first week, I often remarked about how remarkable I thought it was that the staff at the college actually were able to launch this beta cohort in the time frame that they were able to. It was not an easy thing to do. And few of us have had experience kind of looking under the hood of what it takes to actually birth something like that. And what that has allowed us to do is then focus on how we can push to make improvements to support the students in the cohort. This has been a very important part of the research and development phase, and I think as intended, it's yielding valuable data and informing what actual design interventions around either curriculum or instruction or student supports are needed in more of a real-time way. So when staff sees an opportunity or a gap for improvement, they can set up the improvements very quickly. And when students suggest changes or their needs surface in other ways, we are able to very quickly build and to execute additional supports that they might need. Right now, we are intensely focused, as Tom mentioned, on student success as the beta cohort enrollees start moving through programs near certification and completion of their coursework. That'll happen over the next several weeks and the next several months. And I really wanted to take a moment to reassure the board that we are fully committed to the career goals and future successes of those students and helping them achieve in any way they can, even as we make these programmatic changes that will improve their experience and even as we work to facilitate better outcomes for them in the face of all of these economic shifts. As we are strengthening our internal operations, it's equally important that we spend time strengthening our relationships with key stakeholder groups. We are reaching out to system college presidents to understand how our college can better serve statewide needs. We are working to identify ways where we can better collaborate with existing colleges, including sharing best practices that we're learning, as well as developing resources that are designed to support system-wide efforts to grow competency-based education in the context of online education. This reinforces something that most of you already know about in terms of my priorities, which is a more close-knit relationship with campuses in the 114 to the benefit of the entire system, and really to help us more nimbly respond to the changes in the labor market that we'll see and the potential threat associated with external colleges and for-profit colleges who may be otherwise entering this market to target this population that we are supporting. Every day, the team is navigating the kind of day-to-day chaos of the time with a real commitment to effectively supporting our students, and also working hand in glove to enhance our capacity to serve larger numbers of students in the coming weeks and months. Our review of the current operations is also being undertaken with that eye, an eye to how we have to reorient the college's efforts to support Californians to transition from the situation that we're in the statewide shelter in place into a reopened economy. And, you know, I think the thing that I've been thinking about a lot related to this is our ability to design the college to scale, but also to be able to design the college to be built for the kind of change and responsiveness that we need. You know, we have to be able to swiftly respond to the needs of the communities, but then also this transformed labor market that we'll be entering into, and the kind of uncertainty around what comes as the recovery continues. With this in mind, we're devoting some additional time over the coming weeks to explore and to plan key opportunities for partnership development, support, and rapid response pilot programs that could meet the acute needs of the state. But thinking about our capacity in focusing pilot efforts around areas where we want to increase our capacity to address some of the gaps that we're seeing in the statewide education and training system, whether that's helping individuals to upskill or transition into employment, pursue re-employment as the crisis recedes and we see jobs returning. To that end, we're continuing to engage industry experts, employers, unions, and other workforce intermediaries in helping us execute on the kind of creative, collaborative solutions that are going to be needed to reopen and are going to be needed to handle these shifts.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item is public comment. Do we have any public comment at the moment?
I do not have any public comment at this.
Okay, thanks. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda, item 2.1, the renewal of the audit contract for 2019-20. Is there a motion on the consent calendar, consent agenda?
Move consent. This is Pam Haynes.
Second, this is Jolena Grande.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, let's call the roll.
Sorry about that. Hildegarde Aguinaldo,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
Aye.
Jolena Grande,
Aye.
Pam Haynes,
Aye.
and Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the action agenda, item 3.1, the RFP.
Thanks. Sorry, you cut out a little bit, but I'm assuming it's on for me. So good morning, President Talwalker Menon, Board President Epstein, Vice President Haynes. I'm Nick Schweitzer, Chief Financial Administrative Officer. So today we are requesting approval of our contract to implement our RFP and student information system. So we need an RFP, an enterprise resource planning, and a student information system to perform the basic financial administrative tasks of the college, collect and manage student data, and produce mandated reports. State law and regulations require districts to maintain student records and have an adequate management information system. So adopting this contract would fulfill those requirements. Going into a little more detail on what these are and how we arrived at the vendor. So student information system, the main purpose for that is to maintain student records. The ERP comprises all of the financial and accounting systems as well as the human resource and payroll systems for the college. We released a RFP to procure these systems back in early November. We notified over 100 vendors to invite them to apply or to submit proposals. We received 3 proposals. Those proposals, we went through a several month process of that started with evaluation by our ERP procurement consultants, Barry Dunn, which the board had approved a contract with last year to do this. We, of course, scored all of the proposals. A team of Calbright executives and staff from across the organization scored the proposals, and then we did a couple of days of software demonstrations to arrive at our decisions. So going through the vendors who applied or submitted proposals, Workday is a fairly well-known and popular system, internationally. They submitted a proposal. However, their proposal didn't include a student information system. We would have had to seek a third-party student information system to integrate. And so we did not feel that that was going to meet our needs and would take an unnecessarily long time to do. Then Ellucian, who has very well represented across, particularly here in California, across the community college system here in California, that gives them some strengths in that they know how the community college system operates. However, some of their solutions they proposed for student apprenticeship support wasn't a great fit. Their ad hoc reporting was weak and didn't really, their student information system really didn't support our competency-based model. So then the third proposal was from a firm called Campus Management. They were the low cost bidder. They're leading cloud-based student information and ERP system. We got more than 1,000 higher education institutions in 30 countries. They do also represent or do support some community colleges in other states, though not in California yet. Would be the first one. So they had a much better competency tracking, competency completion tracking approach than the other firms. And they had better tools for student success and support through their dashboards. So as a result, the review committee recommended Campus Management for a contract would cost about $2.3 million over 5 years, and an additional $200,000 for travel and expenses over that period. We expect the full implementation to take 15 months with the ERP part of it to go live early 2021, and then the student information system would go live, a couple of months after that in 2021 by the end of the first quarter in 2021. So we're still engaged in contract negotiations with CMC. We are settled in terms of the statement of work and the price. Right now, we are in the final stages of working with them on contract language to ensure that we make payments as they are successfully completing project milestones and deliverables, because we want to make sure that as CMC works with us and stands these systems up, that we are paying them as they produce on the deliverables, so that we're managing and they're managing the contract and their work correctly. So given that we don't have the contract fully completed yet, we'd actually request authority to complete negotiation of the contract, and with the concurrence of the board president, execute the contract, so long as the cost does not exceed the amounts I said, the 2.3 plus the 200,000 in travel costs, a total of 2.6 million over the 5 years. So with that, I'm open to any questions. I think President Epstein, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was just commending you on your white shirt and tie at home. That's very.
I'm doing the weatherman trick at the moment.
So are there any comments from the board about this?
I have a question.
Yes.
I noticed on the analysis that the Lucian handled the CalPERS, CalSTRS reporting fairly easily. It was built in. And I think you said that the CMC didn't have that built in as part of the reporting. How are we going to handle the CalPERS, CalSTRS reporting?
So and we're building this into the statement of work that you know, to be successful, and CMC has indicated to us, and really through the evaluation and demonstration process, they made the commitment that they are working on developing that functionality, that and that they would be able to do that. So as I said, as we structure these project deliverables and payments, certainly we will want to ensure that they are able to and do deliver and are able to make those reports as part of the statement of work and as part of the, you know, what they need to do in order to be paid.
Great. Thank you.
Nick, this is Jolena Grande. I was just wondering, does CMC integrate with any other software applications that are commonly deployed at the colleges that we might be seeking to integrate in the future?
I'll probably ask Carl Silva, our director at IT, if he can maybe help answer that question.
Sure. Yes, hi. They do integrate with the major software packages that other colleges use, such as document signing and other associated technologies.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Any public comments?
We do not have any public comment at this time.
Okay, with that then I can open the floor for a motion.
So moved.
Jolena got it. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can you please call the roll?
Yes, Hildegarde Aguinaldo,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
Aye.
Jolena Grande,
Aye.
Pam Haynes,
Aye.
Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. On to action item 3.2, the CCCT board election. We are entitled to submit a ballot for the members of the CCCT board. We happen to have on our own board a member of the CCCT board, Vice President Haynes, and she has studied this carefully, and she and I had a discussion about the candidates, and I agree with her judgment on whom to recommend, and I will turn it over to her to explain.
Without sounding too self-serving, my colleagues, I've tried to be impartial in this process, and I want to give my colleagues just a little bit of background. The Ccct, that's the Community College Trustees portion of the league, and the Community College League of California has two different sections. It has a section and an oversight and a board for trustees, and then it also has a board for CEOs and superintendents. And it's solely an advocacy. It has a very strong advocacy voice, and therefore becomes a partner with a number of stakeholders that we're all familiar with, including the Chancellor's Office. But it also has this component of working in service of community colleges, efficiencies of scale, making certain that rural colleges will get what it needs without a huge cost associated with it. The whole issues around Canvas was one in which it became a efficiency of scale that we all sort of use systems that make some sense. So it has a dual role, one in service of CEOs, also in service of elected trustees, as well as sort of the whole body of the 115 colleges, of which Calbright is one of its newest members. On the trustee side, there are 21 board members who are elected by our peers. There are approximately 440 some odd trustees in the state of California. And so the ballot you see are those who are either currently on the board, they're looking for re-election, or they are new to the board given the vacancies. And so the other thing I'd like to sort of explain is, I want to give you some background on how I sort of look at my role in terms of helping. Stop laughing, Tom. Stop laughing. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, too many hand movements. So let me just say that at this time, the list that we have are that there are, what did I say? There's 12 vacancies, and there are 6 current members who are running for re-election. The election cycle, the number of years that a person can sit on the board is 3 years, and they can run 3 times, a total of 9 years. So I'll use myself as an example. I have been elected 2 different terms, 2 3-year terms. I will have gone through 6 years. I am up and willing and wanting to run for the 3rd and last term on mine. So there are six on the list that are for re-election, myself included. There are 3, if indeed those folks get elected, then there are 3 other seats. But for official purposes, all 9 seats are available. And so and this is how I look at my colleagues. There are 21 of us on the board, and I believe in being intentional. I believe in being equity focused, and I believe that California is vast, it's huge, and so we need all kinds of voices on that board. There's power in being a big college. So we need to have that particular voice, but we also need to have the voice of the rural communities, because they have issues that we are not necessarily as familiar with. And so we need those voices. We also need the voices of single districts versus multi-districts. We also need a north, south, central, inland empire voice. And so as I look at the candidates, and as I look at the other members who are on the board, on the current board, who are not up for re-election, I'm looking at where do we need to fill, and at the top of all of that, we want to make certain that the people that we elect really have students in mind, that have the whole system in mind, and that we can come together and advocate as one voice. We haven't always done that because CEOs come to advocacy from a very different perspective than trustees. Faculty may come to a different perspective based on faculty, classified administrators. We all we come to it. But when we go into the building, and again, this is an advocacy organization, we lose when we don't come in with one voice. We don't get heard. We get pushed aside. So I'm always looking to make certain that we have that. The other piece of this is that I'm also looking with intentionality in terms of, do we have all of our racial and ethnic relationships on that board as well? And then the other is the parity with male and female. So I want you to know that I have done my very, very best to keep all of those balls in the air, hopefully not dropping them. And obviously, we are just one college out of 115. All of the 115 colleges, or sorry, districts, all of the 73 districts will be voting or have already voted and sent in their information. And then in May, the count will happen, and then it will be posted on who those new folks are. So my recommendation, and I'm happy to take questions, my recommendation is that we return the 6 incumbents. We re-elect them. And I say this, and I mentioned to Tom, I'm not always in agreement with all 6, but I believe that where I'm not in agreement, disagreement is fine. Collaboration has its disagreements, and we need to have all of those voices. So I am recommending that all 6 be returned to the board. These are people that I've worked with, that I know, that have students and their colleges in mind. And then also, while we may have differences about the funding formula, while we may have differences about those kinds of things, we come together so that we make certain that when we go into the legislature, when we support bills, that we're doing it with a single voice. And then the three other vacancies, I have recommended Barry Snell from Santa Monica. I've also recommended Suzanne Lee Chan from Ohlone Community College. That's in Alameda. It's a single college district, and so is Santa Monica. Ohlone is much smaller. Santa Monica is pretty big. And then the third one I am recommending is Barbara Jean Calhoun from Compton. We are losing, and let me just be very transparent. We are losing three members. One from I don't have my little thing in front of me. Okay, so one of the members is Laura Cassis from Foothill De Anza, which is it's a multi-college district. It's pretty big. Stephen Castellanos from San Joaquin Delta, which is the Central Valley, and Jim Moreno from Costa Community College District. And let me just be really transparent. All 3 are Latinos. The Latinos are the largest population in the state of California. While we have that representation on the board, no other Latinos are candidates. But I always try to keep that in mind, and I'm also trying to keep in mind how many years they've served as a trustee. And then I also try to keep in mind what has been their experiences. Have they been active in their communities? Many of my colleagues on that board come out of K-12 as board members. Some of them have been faculty members. Many of them are retired now. There are a couple of them who have been administrators at a community college, or currently understanding that they can work at a community college, it just can't be in the district in which they serve as a trustee. So we do have this cross section. So I'm also looking, besides that wonderful experience, I'm also looking for those voices who have been embedded within the community or have been on other kinds of boards. And so with that, those would be my 3 other recommendations to serve on the board. And with that, I'll give it back to our president.
Thanks, Pam. So do we have any board questions or comments? None? Are there any public comments? Okay.
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, thanks. All right, then it's time for a motion. So Vice President Haynes, I think you're probably the logical person to make the motion.
I'd like to move the recommendations.
I'll second it. This is Member Grande.
Okay, and sorry about that. Just to be explicitly clear, I think we should read the
names.
The names. I will do that. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I got it.
Okay.
Adrian Gray, Andra Hoffman, Pam Haynes, Stanley Chan, Barbara Jean Calhoun, Marissa Perez, Larry Kennedy, Barry Snell, and Lauren Steck.
That's correct. Oh.
Okay. Is there a second? Oh, you have a second, Member Grande, right? Okay. With that, I think we can call the roll.
Hildegarde Aguinaldo,
Aye.
Tom Epstein,
Aye.
Jolena Grande,
Aye.
Pam Haynes,
Aye.
and Bill Rawlings.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. So moving on now to item 4.1, reports on contracts and purchases.
Thank you. Nick Schweitzer, CFAO again. I'm getting to my notes here real quick. So again, financial activity, particularly with regard to contracts, continues to be a little bit reduced as we continue to work through our transitions, and particularly with the the current circumstances. Most of the contracts again are amendments to extend or increase existing contracts or contracts that have been approved earlier. Couple of significant contracts to mention is $80,000 contract, and that is to evaluate and build a CalBrite strategy for collecting and using data and for data governance. Something that is going to be really very important to our success going forward is how we make the best use of data and ensure that it's used in a thoughtful and a safe way. And then the other contract, $93,000 contract, President Tal Walker-Menon mentioned the work on the organizational review. So that contract is working with us to do that review over the next couple of months. Then as far as purchases, again, the most significant are the WeWork leases, and we need to look at what's going on there, what the future of those leases. Of course, we're not occupying any of those sites at the moment, though we still are still. I think folks still occasionally go in to pick up things that are sent to those sites, but we're not occupying them right now. We need to think about whether, given the circumstances, there's any sort of discount we can get, or whether there's an alternative we need to look for sooner rather than later to those those offices. And then the other purchases have been, for the most part, month-to-month payments for software licenses and, equipment. Continued at last month, do a little spending on social media buys. However, our marketing firm that the board approved a couple of months ago will be taking up that in the coming months, and will be beginning making those media buys for us. So I'm happy to take any questions on those.
Any board comments?
This is Pam. This may not be the time. I'd be interested at some point a report on, and it might not be you, Nick, that gives the report, but the report on how many touches, how many clicks on some of the advertisement and promotionals we're doing on Facebook, and just some of these are. I guess it's Facebook, and there may be some other kinds. Because I think we might have started off with a certain number, and it might have gone up. It might have gone down. I'd like some assessment of are we continually monitoring those outreaches, and maybe explain to us which, like Facebook may be focusing on students, another one may be focusing on something else. I'd like a report that helps explain the use of these dollars on a monthly basis, and what the purposes are, and to what extent we're increasing, staying the same, or decreasing in terms of touches, clicks.
Yes, I'll just take that one, and then also if I'll let Araceli add anything if she needs to. So specifically what you're asking for is the spend in the context of a marketing strategy, which is in process. And the first stage of the firm's work on the marketing side is actually to engage those stakeholders, to identify the communities that we're outreaching into, to identify the sort of media outlets and other points of connection that will allow us to get more focused targeting. But ultimately where we want to get to is to have a reduced spend relative to other comparable institutions on our marketing dollars. It's why we haven't done any big ad pushes until we have a strategy concretely in place, and we have an understanding of what the returns are on that. So Araceli may have a couple of things to add based on our learnings from some of that current work, but you'll see a more full presentation in May.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board member comments? I just want to say one thing, Nick, going back to the WeWork. I think it's very important to seek a reduction in the cost of that under these circumstances. I don't know exactly what's in the contract language, but I know that that other WeWorks are shutting down or are greatly reduce their services. So it seems to me like we should have some leverage in saving some money on that.
And
Yes.
I would add, Nick, depending on how much space, it seems to me, and again, the contract will guide. We may, I don't know if we contract based on square footage or modules, but we certainly don't need the number that we have right now. So I'm with the president on that one.
Duly noted. We will certainly be following up on that.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on this item? Okay, hearing none, that's a thank you, Nick. That's just an information item. So we have now the public forum. Do we have anybody who has indicated an interest in speaking during the public forum?
No, we've not received any requests for public comment.
Okay, well, this is going to be our quickest meeting ever. And so I appreciate everybody joining. I do want to say that I think the full board meeting in May is going to have a lot of meaty issues on it, and we can expect a longer and kind of more action item type of agenda next time. So I'm assuming that the next meeting will also be remote, and so I look forward to seeing you virtually in about a month. So thanks, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.